Welcome to the Simple Idea Podcast. My name is Makai Green, and this is a podcast about personal development and just different learning experiences. This is actually the first official episode. The last episode you guys heard, if you tuned into that one, was just an introduction episode where I talked about the formatting for the podcast, my reason for starting it, and just some of the topics that I'll be talking about throughout the duration of the podcast. So if you missed that, you can go back, and it was the first episode. I'll link it below. But if not, this episode is about getting started. And in this episode, I'll pretty much just talk about the idea of getting started and my personal experience with getting started and its relation to this podcast specifically. So I guess let's get into it. So for me, getting started, and in terms of this podcast, it was more so about a process that took about, I want to say, a little over a year, maybe just about a year. And about a year ago, or a little over a year ago now, so in November of 2017, I thought about making a podcast. I had the idea, and I mean, it stuck with me for a while up until the point where I'm here now, and I decided to make one. But for the past year or so, I thought about it, and I didn't really do anything with it. And that was a mistake of mine, just because if you have something on your conscience, you should probably take advantage of it, or you should probably pay attention to it. So it took me a while to finally get that hint, but here I am. And I'm glad that I decided to make that move on getting started. And for a while, I pretty much just talked myself out of it, or I just made excuses. Oh, I don't have the right gear, or I can't do this because I don't know what I'm doing. And there's other podcasters out there who are just doing a much better job than me, or just there's people out there that know what they're doing, and what is anybody going to care about what I have to say? And just a bunch of stuff that I would throw out there just to doubt myself. And that kind of played a role in me not starting this podcast at all. And I regret it, because who's to say that if I were to start a year ago and I thought about it, I could be much further along. But I think what's important here is that I'm actually starting now rather than not starting at all. So I am happy about that. Even if, I'm worried about growth, or just not people not hearing me or something, chances are, even if it's only one or two people, I'm reaching more people by starting as opposed to not starting at all, because I can't reach anybody. So yeah, even if the growth is, very just, very slow, or if there's a lack of growth, or it's not what I expected, as long as I put the time, energy, and effort, it really can't work against me. If anything, it'll work in my favor, just because, I'm putting the effort out there, I'm getting started, I'm, taking action, which is very, very important, and that's a lesson that I've learned over the past year or two. But, yeah, and I didn't mention this in the introduction episode, which is my reason for starting the podcast and whatnot, but the reason for the name, or the influence behind the name, the simple idea, because when you look at the name and you look at what the content of the podcast is and what it kind of embodies, you might be like, oh, okay, that's strange. I get the podcast concept and I get what you're going to be talking about, but how does the name apply? Well, for me, the idea behind the simple idea is, it's really as simple as this. I had a simple idea of starting a podcast, and I never did. So I told myself, hey, it's a really simple idea. It's something that might take some work. It might take some energy, some effort, some time. But, it's a really simple idea, so just start it. Just do it. So, like I said before, I'm glad I'm just starting. I'm just doing. And I'm just happy that I'm finally putting myself out there and just sharing whatever I have going on. So excited about that. But yeah, there's nothing too crazy behind the name. It's the simple idea because it was a simple idea. And I'm just glad to be starting it. What else do I have for you guys in terms of getting started for this first segment? Excuse me. Oh yeah, another thing about this podcast, everything you guys are seeing here is done by my hands. I have had no help at all, and it feels pretty good. And I think it's important to have help and don't shy away from help. But for me, this is something that's been a pretty big step, just because I don't want to say I'm used to relying on other people to get stuff done, but I feel like I need to be a little bit more independent and, kind of rely on myself more than I already do. So for me to take it upon myself to start this podcast and to take everything that you see here, or everything that's being produced, and put it into my own hands and force myself to be capable of something I know I'm capable of, it just feels good. It starts with just getting started and just, believing in my own capabilities, which is something that's helping me get over self doubt and just stuff like that. So it feels good. So if you're wondering why things look kind of crappy and maybe you think it looks good, it's totally up to you how you feel. But I don't know. So far, I'm proud of what I've created. Granted, it is only the first episode or two, but I don't think I'm doing too bad. And over time, like I mentioned in the previous episode, I am hoping to get better. So that's always cool. But yeah, everything you see in here in regards to this podcast is created by my hands and my hands only. But yeah, so along with this getting started thing, something that kind of motivated me to get started is just the idea of of being more productive. So for the past year and a half to 2 years, I've been fairly unproductive, until recently, I decided to just pick up more consistent habits and just try to be more productive and just change how I'm living my life. And this podcast is a huge step in that, just because it's going to help me develop a level of consistency. I'm forcing myself to kind of air out my problems, my struggles, my successes, my failures, my accomplishments. Just air it out, throw it out there, make myself more vulnerable, just share my opinions, hopefully hear opinions from other people, hear different perspectives, just give different ideas on a plethora of different things. And while doing that, I'm maintaining a consistent schedule. I'm going to make sure that this is a weekly thing, so I can't back out of it. And when I build levels of consistency in different aspects of my life, I notice that I'm more productive. So this podcast is essentially the next big step in me developing more consistent habits and just being a more responsible person. And I know it's just something as simple as, you're just talking for 20, 30 minutes an episode, uploading it, and then you're doing it again. But just repetitive consistency over time helps build a person. And I know that when I have a level of consistency, I feel better about myself. I feel more productive. I'm just generally I'm a more happy person. So this podcast has been a pretty huge step. And like I said before, I'm only 1 or 2 episodes in, and who's to say by episode 50, if there's even an episode 50, I'll still be doing this. But the goal is to establish these little mini steps or these little mini victories and just build off of them. So that's just kind of my headspace in terms of my productivity levels. I still have more to comment about it. On top of that, I kind of just needed a hobby that was more productive than what I was doing before. Before I was just wasting my time doing a lot of just random stuff that just doesn't really matter, like playing a lot of video games, or just wasting my time doing stuff that just isn't gonna benefit me in the long run. And granted, you have fun doing these other things like playing video games or hanging out with friends, and hanging out with friends is cool, but you got to worry about these things in moderation, or you have to worry about things and take responsibility when you need to take responsibility. So this podcast is serving as a very vital tool in helping me shape different parts of my life, or parts of my life that I want to improve on. So it's definitely helping me with my failure to be productive. And at the end of the day, if this podcast turns into something, then it turns into something. Like I don't anticipate it gaining a large audience or gaining a ton of traction or anything crazy, but I am, like I said before, I am just happy to just finally get started, because it's the first step towards something bigger, and I am able to realize that. And I just appreciate being able to be more productive and taking these mini steps. But yeah, I played a lot of video games, and video games are cool, like I said before, but I need to be more productive and just, worry about things in moderation and focus on things that are going to be more worthwhile to me. So this is one of those things that'll be more worthwhile. And I kind of talked about some of my unproductive habits just now, and I do want to touch upon some productive habits that I had at some point in time. So we're going to go back to my freshman year of college. So I was 18 going into 19, and this was 2016, 2017. And yeah, I don't know. That year I was a very, very productive person. And I'm in the process of reclaiming those productive habits, but I'll just touch upon why I was productive. So freshman year, I pretty much was really dialed in with what I was doing. I was very focused. I was very aware, very conscious of what goals I had in mind. I'd have goals, I would set them. I would write stuff down. I would have a dream board. I would make sure that I go to sleep early. Just all the things, all the little things that you need to do to make sure that you're successful. I implemented those freshman year, and I saw success. It was to the point where I decided I want to try writing a book. So I wrote a book. I published a book. I even made some money off of that book, and I would have made more money if I marketed off of it, but I didn't. So for about a good 4 to 5 months, I worked my ass off, and I published a book, made some money off of it, and I felt good. It felt like, okay, I'm taking steps in the right direction. And even during that time, as I'm writing this book, I studied harder. I limited my distractions. I played no video games. I had a PlayStation at the time. I made sure I brought that back home, left it at home. Only thing I had was my computer, my textbooks, some notebooks, some papers, some really important books that inspired me at the time, and to this day they still continue to inspire me. But yeah, I just decided to read more. I was really dialed in. I was really focused. I made sure that I was expressing myself in my creativity and doing that to the max. I make sure I just draw, just doodle, just anything to kind of just put my mind out there and make sure that I'm focused. I was doing that. And after that period of time going into my sophomore year, so this is during my freshman year, I was extremely productive, had a really good freshman year, going into summer, productive, working, making some money, working on my own stuff, kind of following that entrepreneurial path. And I still, at some point, want to go down that path. But that's where I was at, and it felt good. And going into my sophomore year, I fell into a bit of a slump. I had different things going on, and that's no excuse, but I fell into a slump. I lost consistency, and I became unproductive. And that's what I was talking about prior when it came to me just not starting the podcast or me just wasting my time doing stuff that didn't matter. And that's led me to here. So those are just some of my past struggles and failures. And I know I'm not going real deep into it, but I'm trying to be conscious of time. I'm still going to figure out whether or not I want to make these episodes a little longer or a little shorter. We're going to try to figure that out. And I'm not sure if you guys want more details behind my situation, because I can go a little deeper, but I'm just trying to paint a pretty broad picture so you have an idea of where my headspace is at. But yeah, right now we're just going to move past the past productive habits. But yeah, right now I'm in the process of reclaiming and developing consistency and productivity again. So I'm just kind of forcing myself to get back on to healthy, more positive, more productive habits. So right now I make sure I consistently read anywhere between 10 and 20 pages of the book a day. And everything that I'm going to mention now is just like a little mini success throughout the day. And when you have these little mini successes adding up, and they kind of just compound into bigger successes. So the more you do smaller little things, the more it feels good, and the more you want to do those smaller things. And those smaller things lead to bigger things, and those bigger things lead to bigger things. And it's kind of just like a little avalanche of success. So these are what these consistent habits are. But as of now, I'm reading 20 pages of a book or two a day. I do a daily workout in the morning. And when I say workout, it's not like a real crazy intense workout, but I make sure I do between like 40 and 50 push-ups, 40 and 50 calf raises, 40 and 50 sit-ups in the morning and at night, and sometimes throughout the day. And you just wake up feeling good. I make sure I drink a ton of water. The amount of water I drink is absolutely insane. And I'll get into that in a little bit or in future episodes, because that could honestly just be an episode within itself. But yeah, I drink a ton of water every morning. I make sure I make my bed. And as of now, I'm just looking for more productive pastimes. Right now, I am podcasting. This is productive. I'm taking a certain amount of hours every week to put together episodes for you guys and to, just go about doing that. So that's, pretty time consuming, and I enjoy it, but it's a productive pastime, and it's going to be a hobby of mine. So excited about that. And it has been pretty productive so far. And just from whatever I have going on, I'm making sure I'm more attentive to just, applying knowledge that I do come across, whether it's in books or from people or whatever it is, any little piece of knowledge or wisdom, I'm making sure I apply that to my life, and just making sure I act and I do. Basically, I make sure I act upon whatever it is that I'm doing. How do I make that make sense? applying action instead of just reading something and saying, okay, that was useful. What I'm doing is, okay, this is useful. How can I act on it? How can I implement this? How can this benefit me? How can I make my life a little bit better by finding out about this new information? So that's what I mean by, acting or doing anything really. And the other thing is I make sure whatever I'm doing, if I have an idea like the podcast or just random stuff, like I'm looking to start a YouTube channel as well. And I was into YouTube at one point, and I can make another episode about that, but totally not what I want to talk about right now. But yeah, I don't know. Whenever I have the idea to start anything, I make sure I fully commit to it. And even if it's going to be a low quality or not the best quality, the most important thing is getting it out there. Because without getting it out there, there is no quality, there is no room for criticism, there is no room for improvement because it doesn't exist. So I'm really making sure that I hone in and I focus in on the idea of just starting. Even if the quality's low, I can always improve over time. And that's kind of how I'm treating this entire process in regards to the podcast and everything else that I have going on behind the scenes. But yeah, like I said, just podcasting and YouTube in a little bit. And right now, during all this getting started period and just trying new things and trying to get different experiences, I'm also going through a period of self-reflection, and this kind of ties in with what I have going on in my life right now, which once again I will mention in future episodes if you guys think it's interesting. But right now I'm just going through a period of self-reflection, and I'm trying to figure out who I am and who I want to be and what life means to me and how can I be fulfilled. And I think everybody that is alive right now and is conscious, and I guess once you hit a certain age you start to have these thoughts, but everybody's having those same thoughts and those the same just thought processes running through their head. So I know I'm nothing special in that regard, but as of now I've really had to sit here and question what I am here for. Why do I exist, but what is the meaning behind my existence? What am I supposed to be doing? What do I have to offer the world? What do I want out of myself? What do I want out of the people around me? Like, who do I want to surround myself with? So I'm finding myself asking these questions, and it's just a part of this period of self-reflection. I'm trying my best to be in tune with myself and trying to come to this conclusion of self-acceptance and self-development, which is this journey right now. With the podcast, I'm trying new things, I'm getting different experiences. I'm throwing myself out there, and I'm seeing what happens. And I am really excited to be doing that, and I'm happy about it, because before I was just sitting here as I'm watching life pass me by. And I don't mean to go into I don't think this is dark or depressing or anything, but I don't want life to pass me by, and I am going to sit here and tell you the full truth, and I'm going to give you the organic and natural truth of who I am and what my life is and how things are going, because I want to be able to share that with you, and I want to be able to share how I'm learning and growing as a person. So this whole process is just a period of self-reflection. And right now I kind of feel like I'm having a diary entry just because I'm kind of ranting and just going off about random stuff. But I think I should make these more narrowed and targeted and themed, because I feel like I'm kind of going off on like a tangent. But, it's part of the process. So I'll work on that. But yeah, during this period of self-reflection, I am looking for more positive and healthy relationships, and just healthy growth in general within those relationships, and making sure I'm surrounding myself with the right people. Generally, I've made sure I've done a pretty decent job of that as of late. I have run into some situations within the past year or two with relationships, and just trying to navigate through them and how I'm affecting other people and how they're affecting me. So I am working on that, and I think that's pretty vital, because relationships are bigger than most people think, and they are pretty important. You can't not have people in your life, and you have to make sure you have the right people in your life, and you have to make sure that you're providing some type of benefit to being in a person's life, and you have to make sure they're doing the same, and you got to make sure you guys can coexist and operate peacefully, and promote just positivity out of each other. So I am going through that now and trying to figure out how I'm supposed to be doing that, and I'm just trying to figure out who's supposed to be in my life and who's not supposed to be, and I'm trying to find the best way to go about that. So that's something that I'm going through now with this period of self-reflection, and honestly it's a lot, but I'm figuring it out one day at a time, and once I do, I want to be able to share it with you guys. But yeah, what else do I have for you guys before I have to wrap up this episode? Ultimately, I do want to just improve all aspects of my life. I want to wake up feeling fulfilled, or like my life has meaning or purpose. And I think, like I said, everybody at the end of the day, they do want that. And it's just a point in my life right now where I need to find that more than ever. And I'm not going to sit here in front and act like I have it all together or like I'm not struggling, because I'm not the type of person to act like that. And I'll tell you how it is. It might not be peachy and, rainbows and butterflies all the time. And I'm well aware of that. And I won't ever paint a picture where it is like that. And that doesn't go to say that I'm not going to be positive, because I'm going to be positive, and for the most part I have a pretty positive outlook on life as a whole, even when things have me down. I'd always try to look for the best out of any situation, which is good, and it's definitely going to aid me in this, this period of self-reflection and trying to find out who I am. But yeah, during all this, I'm just looking to get a ton of different experiences, learn, travel, just get new things going on in my life, trying different things, plenty of different things. Feel like I'm repeating myself. I'm trying to keep a time limit here. But yeah, just get out of my comfort zone, be more positive, smile more, socialize more. An issue that I have now is just I'm extremely analytical, and I'm the type of person who is very, very observant. I will sit there and listen before I talk in most situations, and sometimes I listen so much to the point where I don't talk. And I can kind of dive further into that in future episodes as well. But I'm trying to be a person as of now that finds that balance between being analytical and speaking up, and just kind of living in the moment. Because not that I don't live in the moment, but I'm not as free as I would like to be socially. And I'm not sure if I'm even making sense, if anybody understands what I'm saying. I'm somewhat of an introvert and an extrovert at the same time. I know there's a word for that. Please don't roast me in the comments if there's even comments. Yeah, I gotta wrap up this episode. Anyway, yeah, I don't know. I just have a lot going on, and this period of self-reflection is just filled with a lot of different things that I need to work on, and I'm just excited to share those experiences with you guys over the course of this podcast. But yeah, this is gonna have to wrap up this episode. I did promise you guys that it'll be between 20 and 30 minutes, so I'm coming up on 25 minutes soon, and I do want to give you guys a few closing remarks. Yeah, so this episode was pretty much just about my current situation in life, and just getting started with the podcast and what I have going on, sort of. I thought it'd be a good introduction episode, or like a good first introduction episode. Just about getting started and a little bit of background behind some of my struggles with getting started and some of my successes as well. But yeah, in future episodes, I'll talk about my successes more. Seems like this was kind of like I'm doing this badly and this badly. And I think it's important to touch upon that. But I also think it's important to be positive and to, recognize your successes as well. But yeah, with that said, I am going to close out on this episode. Sorry if the audio is a little tinny or scratchy. I am in the process of figuring out how to fix that and to just make sure the quality overall is a lot better. Let me know what you guys think of the artwork as well. I spent maybe like a half hour to 45 minutes at like 3 in the morning putting that together. I just randomly rushed into Photoshop, had a whole predicament with that, which isn't entirely relevant, but created that by myself. It looks pretty decent. I just started working with Photoshop as of like the past 3 or 4 months, on and off. So I'm a little rough, and I haven't used it in about a few weeks now. But yeah, we're working on it. I'm not a professional with this stuff, but I am glad to be doing all this stuff pretty much by myself, hands-on, and just the opportunity to get this experience is a blessing within itself. So I am happy about that. But yeah, all right, I'm going to close out on this episode now. I do want to mention there are going to be new episodes every Friday at 12 p.m. noon Eastern time. So if you're on the West Coast, just pay attention to that if you're even listening on the West Coast. Also, the podcast is available on iTunes, Google Podcasts, Google Play Music. Also, it's not available on Google Podcasts because I have to make that submission. But eventually, if I'm able to submit it and it gets accepted, it will be on Google Podcasts. But as of now, the platforms are iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, and Stitcher. By the time you guys get this episode, I'm not sure if all of these will be active because I'm still working on getting them verified and, accepted. But they should be. Those are the platforms that I expect to have them on. What else can I close you guys out on? Oh, yeah. Follow me on Instagram, at Green Mackay. So GREENE, M as in Michael, EKHI. Everything that I'm mentioning will be linked in the description if it's relevant information and you guys are interested. So just be on the lookout for that. The next episode is most likely going to be about my usage of social media and something along those lines. You'll see the episode when it comes out. Also trying to figure out whether or not I'm going to be adding music to the podcast at any point. I'm not too sure about a jingle. Still playing around with ideas at the moment, but I will figure it out. And I don't want to hit that 30-minute mark, so I am going to actually end this now. But thank you for listening. I appreciate you coming to listen to me ramble about getting started. Hopefully it wasn't too out of order and you found some of the stuff to be interesting. I'll try to narrow it down and, stick to the topic a little more. Like I said, I am fairly new to this and I am looking to get better with each passing day and or week. So if you are excited to come along with that or come along on that journey with me, I will be uploading weekly, like I said, every Friday at noon Eastern time. But yeah, that's all I have for you guys today. Make sure you guys, do a kind act to somebody during the week. Smile at somebody, give somebody a hug. Just be positive, something good. And I'll catch you guys next week. Thank you.